And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba the Bat Flip, episode 96. We are going to be recapping your week 25 FAAB action as always. So make sure you check out that good stuff. You can find me on Twitter at BDentric, and my co-host is always on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. Toby, how we doing, my friend?
We're doing pretty well, Bubba. Just got our 3 weeks left to go. I know we're excited to it's like, the push and pull of being excited to be done and take a little bit of a breather from just baseball all the time to being excited for the last couple weeks and a lot of anxiety about like how all the leagues will finish up. So I'm a jumble of emotions tonight.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. I'm watching a couple teams start to fall because pitching has been so unbearably horrible, like insanely horrible. I just can't. I'm blowing up ratios left and right where I thought I had so much wiggle room. It doesn't matter because these guys are so bad. It's just been, it's been special. Trying to get wins and strikeouts has not been a fun thing. So that'll be a big offseason thing. Like wins you can't predict, but strikeouts I'm much more focused on big time KRs, which I thought I was, but we can talk about that when we recap stuff later in the year. But that's the big issue right now. We're really struggling to just hang on to the money, folks. That's what I'm looking for. Like it's the first time in my OC qualifier that I've fallen out of first place. I go back and forth between first and second place like every other day. We go back, like we're right on the edge of stuff. So that
one's like a win or go home, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's like so much fun there. But it's literally I was like in second place for most last week, and then I had a big Sunday, so I'm back in first place. But then today, like right now, I'm like back in second place. So it's just like back and forth. It's painful stuff. But we move on. We move on and see where that goes. And what part of that moving on is FAAB Weekly, which has been so much fun, and it's getting close to the end where you're going to run out of money soon. Like we talked about last week, trying to save money to make moves all the way to the end. And we'll talk about some moves we made this week when we recap stuff where you're probably surprised that these moves went through. But I've seen some big names that are out of cash already because they're going for it also. And you're at the point where I kind of get it with a couple weeks left. You're kind of planning ahead for your last few weeks and barring crazy injuries. This is what it is type stuff. So like I know Toby's talked about it, and he'll talk about it again probably, that there are some moves you can make the last week to kind of mix and match certain specific categories on things. But for the most part, your large chunk of moves is pretty much happening this past week or this weekend. That's, for me, at least that's my thought process there. So let's get at it. The top added player in the NFBC this week because of his two-step, and it was quite the first two-step, is Luis Elo. He was picked up in 165 leagues, as high as $52. His first outing was not the most, I'd say pretty is a nice way I'd say it. The strikeouts were amazing, so I was happy in the league. I can't remember which league I got him in now, but I grabbed him because I needed strikeouts and wins. He did not get the win, but he still managed to go 6 innings, giving up 5 runs on 3 home runs that struck out 8. And those 5 runs happened in the first couple innings. So I was over the moon. They just let him keep going. I was like, thank you, sweet baby Jesus, that you did this, because he made it a respectable start, I guess, with all the strikeouts. So what's your thoughts on Luis Elo? Because we kind of know what we're getting. It's best of both worlds. We've seen tons of walks. We've seen tons of strikeouts. Every once in a while, he puts it all together.
Yeah, Bubba, I'm already doing better tonight. Sal Perez just hit a 3-run home run. So
as we started recording,
my God, let's celebrate. I should have worn my Royals hat. That's what's coming next, ladies and gentlemen, the Royals hat. But yeah, with Heel, I was definitely interested in him just because with strikeouts, I mean, you had to feel like he was probably your best bet with strikeouts. The concern was the walks. I know before this past outing, his control had been horrendous, but he's had issues. Like he had 7 walks 2 games ago. Mm-hmm. He had 4 walks before that. So the whip was a little bit in danger, but at this point in the season, you kind of got to go. Like if you see some skills, then you just kind of got to roll with it if you're in that position. I did not get him though, because I knew I wasn't going to get him because I felt like he would be higher in the bids. I think I had some $6 bids in there for him, but not high enough. And so, I didn't get him, but obviously with a guy with his skills playing for the Yankees, as good a shot as you're going to get for wins. Although he couldn't go 5 the last 2 times out. It wasn't because they weren't letting him go deep into games. It was just because of the control issues. Like he faced, I think, 20 batters and 19 batters or something like that. So he had the opportunity. He just wasn't performing. And I think especially after that first inning, you have to be pretty pleased. Your ratios aren't going to move a ton with 5 earned run in 6 innings pitched. You're really trying to stay away from those massive blowups. And so to give you 7 Ks in addition to that, I think you have to be happy, and knowing that he's got a decent matchup against Cleveland coming up in his next game as well.
Yep, 100% with you. I was worried it was going to be the 2 innings, 5 earned, like 3 Ks. I'm like, oh, this is horrible again. But the fact they let him go was great. Great matchup for Cleveland coming up. He's filling in Taillon's role because Taillon went on the IL, so he should get at least one more start next week. We'll see how that goes. I like the stuff, so I'm rolling with him for now. Obviously, I need him, and I'm hoping, we saw the most batters he's faced in any game this last time out. He went 6 innings for only the second time. So there was things pointing to some positivity, even though he gave it the 5 runs, which were all on the long ball early in the game. They were feasting on him, saying Sano, Donaldson, and Polanco or something. All took him deep. And it's like, well, at least those are respectable names. Those are guys that are taking everybody deep. It wasn't like a fluky one, I guess. So I'll take it. I'm excited to see what he could do the next start against Cleveland and see if it was really worth if the juice was worth the squeeze on this one.
Ooh, juice worth the squeeze. I like it.
Yep. We got all kinds of fun metaphors coming out to everybody tonight. The next most added player this past week, Lane Thomas of the Washington Nationals, picked up in 141 leagues, as high as $63. Kind of surprised he was available in so many leagues. I figured deeper leagues he'd be pretty much swiped up, but he was out there for sure, definitely in 12-team leagues. He's been leading off pretty much every day, especially with Victor Robles going back to the minor leagues. He hit 2 more hits on Tuesday night, gives him 14 games out of his last 16. He's picked up a base hit. He's setting the table. He's scoring runs. He walks quite a bit. A little bit of pop. He's just a little bit of everything, not stealing a ton, but super, super doable and usable. So I grabbed Lane in a couple spots as well.
Yeah, we talked about him, I think, the last 2 shows. Really like the profile, like where he's hitting. He's just one of those guys with that profile and with the number of plate appearances he's going to play hitting leadoff that he's going to help a lot of teams down the stretch, like he did today with 2 runs and 2 hits, like you mentioned. So I don't have much more to say on that one because we've kind of covered him in depth, but he's the type of guy that can contribute down the stretch here.
No doubt about it. I think he'll be important to be a lot of these names that are kind of getting added now, they have a little bit of interest to see how they finish because it might depend on where they go next year type things, because if they could set the tone as well. So that'll be fun with a guy like Lane Thomas. Next up, we talked about Joe Ryan quite a bit last week. I think everyone that didn't add him last week got him this week. 135 leagues, as high as $112. He left today's start after getting hit by a line drive, a comebacker. X-rays were negative. They're pretty much optimistic that he'll be okay, but we'll have to wait and see on that one because there's no reason to rush anything back with Joe Ryan. So, like I said, we talked about him a lot last week. Did you have anything else on Joe Ryan?
Nothing to add on Joe Ryan. He looks really good. Obviously, the BABIP, I think it was like 100 entering today, was really, really low. But I think the strand rate was also pretty low as well. So he looks really good. He's a guy to look at for next year for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The next most added player on this list was Paolo Espino, picked up in 130 leagues, as high as $51. This is a guy that I've had issues with off and on all season because he has really good little stints going, then in stints where he can't do anything but basically put it on a tee for people. He's back to being serviceable is the best way I'll say. His last 4 starts, 5 innings or more in each start, 2 earned runs or less than 3 of 4. And more importantly, something he's doing consistently each time out is he's striking guys out. He got at least 5 Ks in each start. So that's a point in the right direction. He had 2 starts this week. Any thoughts on Espino going into this week and maybe forward the next couple weeks?
Yeah, the Marlins pitcher, or not Marlins, the Nats pitchers are going to be, I think, really helpful down the stretch here. You had Espino, he had Miami, and he didn't get the win because Sandy Alcantara is just unbelievably good. But Espino pitched well yesterday, so he's got he had the Marlins yesterday, pitched well, and then he's got Colorado at home to end the week. So I think that says a lot of what you need to know about why Espino is in there. And then he's got a matchup next week against the Reds. So not great. You probably want to drop him after this week, but the Reds have been struggling a little bit, although more so versus lefties than righties. But this week, I think that's glorious. I even have him in a 12-teamer. I have Espino in my lineup just because I need volume more than I need ratios at this point in time.
Yeah, no, and he's definitely doing that. I'm kind of, part of me wishes I stuck with him. Part of me, I'm glad I got rid of him when I did because the ratios were destroying me then, but now ratios be damned. So that's kind of a fun angle as well. But kind of, I'm trying to figure out what changed his strikeout upside of late, and I can't pinpoint it just at this quick look because the pitch mix has pretty much been the same since last 6 or 7 starts, he basically went from being like a 2.5 pitch pitcher to a 4 pitch pitcher, at least a 3 pitch pitcher, which maybe that's what it is. He's using the curveball more to go with the fastball, or using the slider more to go with the curveball fastball. He used to be almost just curveball fastball for a while there. So I don't know. We'll have to kind of see more of that later on, but it'd be interesting to see what he did.
That's interesting because a guy who's very similar, who's not on the list, but I'm going to mention as somebody I picked up in a bunch of places, is Eric Fetty, who's looked really good recently. I mean, Espino, and this includes his last start, so you didn't know about this beforehand, but you look at his last 5 games, you know, his Z contact, his in zone contact is at 85.1%. So right around league average, but that's actually really good for him because he's not a guy who dominates at all, right? He's not a hard thrower. So the fact that he's actually league average in the zone is pretty good. That O swing is up at 36%. His K rate's at 29.2%, which is insanely good.
He's gone through the roof all of a sudden. He was a pitch to contact guy, and now even when he got blown up for 4 or 5 runs 2 starts ago, he still struck out like 5 or 6. Like he's still getting strikeouts.
Totally. Swinging strike rate at 12%, walk rate at 6.6%. And I think that's one of the things that I like about him is I think he's the type of guy next year at the end of DCs that's going to be a nice little ad just because he doesn't walk guys. And so even though the K rate is below league average, his K minus walk is right around league average, if not better. And so I'm just going to take a really quick look here if there's like been any changes in so he's been using his fastball percentage less throughout the course of the season. Not dramatically so recently.
Yeah, not really. It's pretty much just kind of scattered between like 40 and 60%. It's like there's nothing consistent, at least that I saw looking at Savant right now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at Fangraphs here.
Okay.
Let's see.
It's mainly 4-seam curveball slider, anywhere from like 20 to 40%, and then the fastball about 40 to 60. It's a weird dynamic right now.
Yeah, it looks like relatively recently, at least from the Fangraphs view, that the curveball is elevated, which I'm wondering if that's maybe his best pitch.
It's the one that definitely has like the best expected stats by far.
Yeah, it's got the best O swing, best swinging strike rate. So that might explain a little bit because even a slight bump in that, I think can make a pretty good big dent.
Yeah, no, so it's definitely something to monitor going forward. Yeah, you look at his starts, actually. Here you go, for instance. So like his last start, he had 6 Ks, 4 of them with the curveball. Start before that, 7 Ks, 5 of them with the curveball. Like he's definitely using that more to get the guys out. So that's definitely something to keep in mind going forward and into next year potentially, which is good. Kevin Hastings, our buddy, has something in the chat here. Says, guys off topic, but as guys that were on Salvi in draft season, I never thought I'd see a ball player more beloved in Kansas City than George Rep, but it's happening. Well, I'm happy for you, Kevin. I'm truly happy. I know Toby is as well.
Yeah, we love Salvi on the pod.
Yes.
He's like pretty much our guy.
Big Salvi fans. Big Salvi. It's going to be fun this offseason. Does Toby go to bat for JTR, or does he come with me to the Salvi train? Which way is it going to go?
Man, Salvi, baby.
Oh, listen,
JTR,
you guys heard it.
I love you. I will have
as he wears his Phillies hat.
JTR is going to fall. JTR is going to fall a lot.
Oh, they're going to switch spots
in drafts next season. You know, because the home run numbers were down. So JTR still has 14 home runs, 10 stolen bases. So I mean, it's not the greatest thing of all time. His home run per fly ball rate is down closer to what his usual is. He's got 26 barrels, so you'd expect him to have, 14 home runs seems about right. So everything looks pretty good with JTR. We know he's been injured, pretty much from the get-go this season, which is a little sad, but he still should put up 500 plate appearances, 15-10, 60-60. There's a lot of value there. It'll be interesting to see how far he drops.
Yeah, I'm not doubting him at all, and it'll be a fun discussion because then he can start throwing guys like Will Smith and some other catchers that have moved up also, and kind of start playing that game with the positions. But Salvi's going to take quite the leap, and it's going to be sad when I don't have him rostered pretty much anywhere next year because of the price tag. So we'll have to wait and see how that one goes. But let's talk about Kevin. Exactly. Toby will still have both next year in opposite draft slots.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. I will absolutely do that. I have Salvi in so many leagues. It's unbelievable. And it brings me so much joy. He's
crushing it. That's for sure. Next up on the list here, AJ Alexia, the Texas Ranger guy, had in 120 leagues as high as $60. I want to know how those AJ Alexia owners felt when they saw him come out of the bullpen on Monday night for 3 2/3 innings. That was my biggest problem. And he gave up 6 runs over that deal, walking 4 and striking out 3. I looked into AJ Alexy, I looked into Taylor Hearn, I looked into Jordan Lyles. Lyles was outstanding on Tuesday against the Astros. He's been very good of late. So keep that in mind this next week. I looked into a lot of these Texas guys, but they're going 6, almost 7-man rotations. When you look at the RotoWire thing, like they're just using everybody right now. So there's really nothing set in stone. You're not going to get any two-step guys. And the matchups were like Houston and the White Sox, as you said, because you're going into Texas this weekend. It wasn't great matchups, and it was kind of up in the air on where they'd go. So maybe Alexy gets another bullpen spot and you're fine. But that whole setup, I was just like, I need pitchers, but I'm scared to take these pitchers because I don't know what we're getting. What's your thoughts on Alexy? Because I don't see this changing in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously struggled, so it's easy to say it would have been a bad decision to add him. Now that we've seen what he was able to do.
I'm not saying it because of that. I'm telling you why I didn't do it was because of the whole situation.
Well, I know. I feel the exact same way that you do. I just didn't want us to be like, look, the skills suck, so it was a bad choice. It's like the reason why I would have never started him is because he's going against Houston and the White Sox.
Yeah.
Houston and the White Sox two-step from a guy who's got 8 innings ever, who does not have prospect pedigree. I know he pitched really well, but sometimes you gotta know, and sometimes you're in a position where you're just like, I'm going to throw it all at the wall and this is what I got to do. But if you're not in that position and you're starting Alexy, it's one of those situations where sometimes when a guy does really well, you just got to be like, wow, I'm really thankful that this guy did really well and I'm not going to test fate. And Alexy was one of the guys, I think, where that's the case. Not because he was particularly bad or there was something notable in his skills, but just the fact that he had a two-step with Houston and the White Sox. And yeah, they were both at home, but those are 2 lineups that I'm generally not super interested in starting against. The White Sox less so, but the Astros are just really good hitting team.
They're a juggernaut. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and they'll eat up young pitching. So again, hindsight at this point, just hope that White Sox start goes a little bit better than this last one did for sure.
And like I said, this is why I didn't grab Alexy, Hearn, or Lyles. Lyles pitched great on Tuesday against Texas. So you get some good, you get some bad. It's just the way it goes. So if you roll us, take your chances. It might have worked out for some, not others. They've been decent pitchers, but the part that concerns me the most was not besides just the matchups is Alexy was supposed to start this week, and he came out of the bullpen on Monday. So it's just that their whole rotation, there's no consistency to it. And it's very, very frustrating. So, but if you see something you like in the upcoming weeks, they might get some games and some favorable match. Like say they get Seattle or something, we got stuff to talk about. So keep these Rangers pitchers in mind. They're interesting. They're not locks, but they're very, very interesting going forward. Sticking with the Texas Rangers, Yonny Hernandez has been heating up yet again. He's hit safely in 6 of his last 7 games coming into Tuesday with 5 stolen bases over that stretch, walking over 10% of the time. So pretty much what you thought you were getting from Yonny is steals, and he's doing that for you right now. This Texas team likes to run because Leody Taveras is over there running and a couple other players. So if you need speed, I guess Yanni's not a bad option, Toby.
Yeah, I mean, he was available. I have one league where I kind of needed speed, and he was available, so I snagged him. The thing you got to be careful, know about Yonny Hernandez is you're not going to get any home runs. You're literally going to. I think he's got 1 home run in his minor league career or something, or 1 home run last year. So you're not going to get any power, but he gets on base. He steals bases, 9 stolen bases in 114 plate appearances, something like that this year. And this is a tough week for them because they play Houston and the White Sox, but neither of those teams are particularly good at holding runners. Especially the White Sox are pretty bad. So I'm hopeful that he'll get some saves or that he'll get some steals. And I think that's what you get him for. You pretty much just get him for his stolen bases. And then, occasionally he will hit at the top of the lineup, but really Taveras has been in there for the last week or so, pretty much consistently. So
yeah, I don't see Taveras moving out there unless they have a random off day, but Yonny will still get his chances. Like you said, no power. You look at his last 7 games. I said he hit safely in 6 of 7. His ISO is 0. So there's no
sounds about right.
At least you'd expect maybe a double or something in there. No, just nothing at all. So steals and steals alone, folks. All right, next up.
Don't set those expectations too high.
Yes, strictly.
Ooh, did we snag a Gregory Soto victory here?
Did we?
No. I don't think it's happened yet.
All right,
let's hope it does.
Next guy that got added here is Jon Gray in 103 leagues, as high as $100. And honestly, I got nervous because his first inning was not pretty in Atlanta, but then he got it together. 5 innings, 2 earned, 7 strikeouts. Got the W for you in Atlanta. 2-step week here. Jon Gray better at home than on the road, but he's getting it done on the road, Toby. So what's your thoughts on Jon Gray?
Yeah, he wasn't available in any of the leagues that I was in, so I really didn't take a deep look at him. I know he hasn't been as good recently.
Yes, he scuffled a bit.
Yeah, so let's see. We got in-zone contact rate is up recently, although the strikeout rate is also up. I mean, 32% strikeout rate. So really a great addition if you're looking for Ks. You know, the O swing is low, which is always one of the issues with him. Walk rate up, swing strike rate down. So yeah, I mean, again, like there's a lot of really bad pitchers that you're throwing into lineups right now. Jon Gray is a solid option in 15 teamers. 12 teamers a little bit more sketchy, but if you're looking for Ks, there are a few options you're going to find on the wire better than him.
And unlike some of these other,
the Rockies have been playing well too.
I was going to say, unlike some of these other options, Jon Gray, you could actually keep going forward. He's not a two-step guy and cut. He's actually been serviceable going forward compared to some of these other guys we talked about in recent episodes. And even I'd rather have him over Alexy right now. I'll tell you that much. So Jon Gray, very, very astute move for some that still had him out there. Definitely not available in most of my leagues. DJ Peters, we talked about him in recent weeks. Another Texas Ranger, got picked up in 100 leagues for as high as $38. Went deep again on Tuesday. Not going to hit for average, but he hit for a ton of power. That's what he does. He's been legit very, very. I have between like my 4 or 5 NFBC leagues. I have Solak, Tavares, Peters. I have all these guys added all over the place, and it's very entertaining to see the Texas Rangers having fantasy value. But that's what they do. So, any more thoughts on Peters, who we've discussed quite a bit lately?
No, we've talked a lot about him. You're hoping for the homers, and you got one today.
Yes, indeedy. Bryan De La Cruz, another guy that's really put it together, hitting for a really, really good average for the Miami Marlins. He's hitting so well. They moved up to 3rd in that lineup, right in front of Jesus Sanchez, who's hitting for power. So De La Cruz gives you a little bit of pop, a little bit, not a ton, but hits for average, drives in some runs. The Marlins aren't going to do a whole lot, but he's serviceable if you need that this time of year. He got picked up at 93 leagues. Any thoughts on Bryan De La Cruz?
Yeah, I mean, he's hitting 3rd, like you mentioned, which is definitely something that you want to take advantage of. He's playing every day. You know, it's super BABIP driven, 438. He's the type of guy who will have like this hot end of the season and will move up in drafts, and then will be absolutely dreadful, and will be back in the minors, you know, early on next year. I mean, not to be mean, but like, you know, especially with these just totally BABIP driven profiles, like he's got a 438 BABIP, right? His K rate is slightly worse than league average. His walk rate is slightly worse than league average. You know, he's got that a little bit of power, right? And max EV is not special at 108. He's got 6 barrels and 4 home runs. So he's maybe playing a little bit above that. But you look at his expected metrics, like generally I don't pay that much attention to expected metrics because they're not predictive, and, you know, especially in small samples, but his tail's like a huge tail. Like his expected batting average is 255 compared to 338, and his expected slug is 367 compared to 478. And so again, you roll him out there because he's playing every day. He's hitting in the middle of the lineup in Miami. You don't have high expectations for him. Don't fall into the trap of going after him next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. But if you want to ride him out for some batting average going forward, knock yourself out. He's definitely going to get the chance every day to play. So you got that going for you. Let's go back to Kansas City. Their new closer for now, former closer, back to new closer, Joe Barlow. We talked about him about a month ago when Toby picked him up everywhere. Then he stopped getting saves. Now he's getting saves again. He saved 3 straight games for the Royals. Might get another save tonight as they've come back and taken the lead on the A's. So for now, Barlow's there. Yeah.
You're confusing Joe Barlow with Scott Barlow.
I thought Joe Barlow was for Texas. My bad. Texas.
Texas.
Yes, Texas. Still. So yeah, Scott Barlow might get the save tonight, but
Scott Barlow might. Yes.
Texas doesn't need a save because they beat the snot out of Houston like 8-0. But yes, Texas three straight saves for Texas with Mr. Joe Barlow, and he's looking good again after he looked bad and everybody gave up hope for him.
Yeah, this one's really funny. This is my very clear example of how closers are just lucky as all hell, Like really, like I'm going to tell you the skill profile of Joe Barlow over the last 10 games. And it is so bad. It is the worst possible skill profile you will ever see. And he has pitched really well, right? He hasn't given up a lot of runs. I think he's had one blow up, but some of the runs were earned. So check this out. Joe Barlow, his in-zone contact rate is over 90%, 91%. So essentially opposing hitters are Jose Ramirez against him. His O swing is at 30.5%, so league average. His walk rate is at 11.9%. So that's bad. That's way above league average. His strikeout rate is lower than his walk rate over his last 10 outings at 9.5%. So he's got a negative
K to walk.
2.4% K minus walk. And his swinging strike rate is 5.8%. And it's just hysterical because I'm playing him in all my leagues, right? Like we're all got him in our lineups if we have him this week, if we're going for saves, even though he's going up against Houston, even though he's going up against the White Sox, the skills suck. And they say that he's going to get absolutely crushed this week, but he's a closer. And so if he continues to get a low BABIP, he continues to not give up home runs, and he continues to get lucky as all hell, like he could ride us to some championships, and that's the point of the season that we're at. And so Joe Barlow, keep doing what you're doing. It doesn't look pretty under the hood, but it doesn't have to if you're racking in those saves.
Yeah, that's pretty much sums up Joe Barlow, who it ain't pretty. That's for darn sure, but it's effective, I guess, is the way to go about it. And enjoy it while you can. There's a handful of these guys getting saves now. Your boy Chris Stratton's back getting saves all of a sudden.
Oh man, Chris Stratton has pitched lights out ever since blowing everything.
Yeah, I was just like, it's just the roller coaster ride that is closers. It's something else. It just never ends. It's a constant topic. So we got 2 more weeks of going. This guy closes now. Awesome. Again. So we'll see where that one goes. Eric Lauer. This is the guy that both of us, especially Toby's the main driver of this train, but I jumped on it in a lot of DCs and NFPC 50s and other leagues. I've got a lot of Eric Lauer as well. He got picked up in 89 leagues, as high as $38. He's been nothing short of outstanding. He's given up 3 earned runs or less in every start going back to June 20th. He's been so good right now. Ratios have always been a thing, but the strikeouts have been consistent of late as well. 4 more Ks in 4 straight outings, including 8 strikeouts against Cleveland. He's been awesome, Toby. So what's your thoughts on Eric Lauer?
This is the dream, Bubba. This is the dream coming into reality. This is everything I had ever hoped for. And the only really sad thing is I dropped him in all of my big leagues because of the injuries and things like that. I mean, he's been excellent. The Z contact is below league average over his last 5. O swing is better than league average, which is so important for him because when he struggles, he walks guys. He can't get chases outside the zone. K rate is right around league average, not walking guys at 7.1%. So 16% swinging K minus walk, 11.1% swinging strike rate. I mean, he's certainly been fortunate, I think. I mean, he's definitely due some regression here. Let's see. So his BABIP over his last 5 is at 250 and his strand rate is at 85%. So he's due regression. He's getting lucky in addition to being good. But, my God, like that stat you just mentioned about how not giving up 3 earned runs. I mean, that is, unbelievable. Like that's
much better than
heroic.
Mm-hmm. It's like if you can team him up, he's basically a poor man's, what used to be Kyle Hendricks. Like he's going to go out there and just get you all your ratios, go pair him up with a Garrett Cole or something, and just you're good to go. Like don't worry about your strikeouts, you're fine. So it's quite the dynamic that he's put together there. We'll see if it keeps going on. It'll be interesting to see if he finishes out this strong just to where he lands next year. Because I know most people are like, no, there's no way. Not Eric Lauer. Not a chance. So it'll be fun to see how that one plays out going forward. Tony Gonslin, Los Angeles Dodgers, getting some help back as they need some pitching help for sure. Picked up in 84 leagues as high as $66. He returned on September 9th, went 3 innings, gave up 1 run, struck out 3. They're easing him back into it, but I say that because they kind of eased him back the first time and he never really went too deep because he had massive control issues. He was always kind of not really the guy they wanted him to be. So I haven't bought in on Tony Gonsolin once in fantasy. I know the skill set's there. We liked him going into the season. I haven't seen it yet from him. And that's like I can get these. The Dodgers aren't going deep with him. So we'll see. I didn't see how he fared on Tuesday night, but he's back. He had 2 steps this week. So what's your thoughts on Tony Gonslin?
Yeah, he's absolutely shoving tonight.
Of course.
I don't know what he's at right now, but he hasn't given up a run in 4 innings, and he had like 6 Ks or something like that. I devoted like 4 weeks to waiting for him to come back to the IL, and then I devoted like 4 to 5 weeks of him just walking every batter known to man and not throwing 5 innings. And then I dropped him, and now he's going to shove. So I hate you, Tony Gonslin.
4 innings, 1 hit, no earned, 1 walk, 5 Ks, 54 pitches so far.
Yeah, there you go. So Tony Gonslin, you and Ian Happ, you guys can maybe like have a party afterwards, and I don't know what I'm going to say, but
it's been tough. I'm with you.
Tony Gonsolin is Ian Happ of
it's
pitchers.
It's funny because he hasn't shown us anything to fall in love with him this season. Last season, we were all like, we saw his skills.
So good.
Maybe he's probably going to do it now for 2 reasons: to tilt us in fantasy and to be ready to beat the Giants. So it's going to be one of those things, just to really make it in my face in the whole scenario. So we'll see. If the D-backs do help people look better, I'll say that much. So that does help. Let's see how the next start goes. But the fact he's not walking anybody is a good point in the right direction.
Although I will say they make right-handed pitchers look good.
Yes, true.
Lefties, they're a little bit better. Yeah,
True that. Another new closer this season, and he came over from the Cubs, and now he's filling in with all the issues there in Oakland, is Andrew Chafin, who's picked up a couple saves over the last week. He's not the for sure closer, but I think signs point to him being the closer, and he's been pretty darn effective, especially with the A's. He's only given up like 3 or 4 runs total in his whole time here. He's been great, and he's really good with the Cubs as well. So Chafin was added in 80 leagues for as high as $57. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'm a fan. I added him in a bunch of places. I think he's clearly the guy. Like, there's just not a lot of trust for anyone in the Oakland bullpen. And honestly, they're showing you why right now. I mean, God, they've just absolutely. It's 10-7 now. Like they're just bad. Honestly, like he looked like the guy that was going to get the job, and so I haven't looked super deep into his profile. I would say it's not super impressive. In zone contact at 94%, that is god awful. That's like facing Nick Madrigal every at bat. He does get a lot of chases outside the zone at 36.1%, though. The K rate is right around league average at 23.8, but he hasn't walked a guy in his last 10 outings, which is certainly an impressive feat. Doesn't really get swinging strikes, but gets some called strikes clearly from the strikeout rate. So he's fine, like nothing to write home about, but being the closer of the A's is usually a nice role throwing in that bullpen. I just think it's a nice spot for him. So I have him in a lot of places, but doesn't look like he's going to get a save tonight because that bullpen is just imploding.
Yeah, not looking good there for sure. I just want to kind of cherry pick a few more. I was going to be really excited about one that I saw the breaking news a second ago. Seth Beer was added in 50 leagues, but he left tonight's game with a separated left shoulder. So that stings because I think I got him in one. I think I got him in 1 league. I can't remember how many. I think I got him in 1. So that was fun. He was literally crushing the minor leagues. Came up his first 3 games, hitting in all 3 games. Just looked like the real deal that could give you some power. That's going to sting because that left shoulder that probably puts him out for the season. So that'll be a detriment there for sure. So he was one I wanted to talk about. We don't need to talk about that anymore. Jesus Luzardo was looking good his last 3 starts, got shelled because he couldn't strike anybody out on Tuesday. Do you believe in Luzardo going forward, or are you still not going to do it?
I think he'll come good. I think he'll be a guy who goes late in drafts that I'll probably look at next year, just because. Remember, before this year,
next year for sure. I'm talking about the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks. I think he's a matchup play for me. I mean, I would have started him this week if I could have gotten him against Washington. And then let me just see. So he's at Washington. The next week he's got Washington and then Tampa Bay. That one's a little bit more dicey, but I'd probably go with it if I need strikeouts. But I'll be interested. I mean, next year I think he'll be a guy of interest for sure, just because post-type sleeper looked really bad, but Miami has done some really amazing things with some of their younger pitchers. And he's pitched a lot better of late. So yeah, I got to do a little bit of more of a deep dive, but he looks good skills wise over the last 5 games or so.
Yeah, the little bit I dug in for his DFS stuff on Tuesday, he the swinging strike rate's up to almost 16.5% over the last 3 starts, where the strikeouts all of a sudden rose. So he's got that going for him. His K to walks going up. He's still walking 10% over those 3 games, which is still not great, but things are going in the right direction. But then tonight against Washington, he couldn't strike anybody out. He had a lot of 2-strike counts, couldn't finish guys off. So that was quite annoying, to say the least. But I'm curious to see where he goes going forward this season, because I think the skill sets are kind of making the turn in the right direction. Just, do you want to take that gamble or not? We'll wait and see. I think he's got more upside than most guys you're going to grab out there. Just, it's not consistent at all. Chris Bassett, I just want to bring him up because he got added in 50 leagues. He's traveling with the team, throwing a bullpen in Kansas City. If all goes well, he could potentially pitch next week. So if not, for sure the following week. They're saying that he should be able to get 2 to 4 more starts this season. That's what they said. I'll believe it when I see it. I could say 2 because they want to get him ready for the postseason. So they're going to want to throw him a little bit. So if he's available, I think he's definitely worth an ad if he's out there for you, and you're going to get him for dirt cheap because no one's got money. So keep him in mind. Were there any other names you wanted to talk about, or do you want to go to your ads and talk about guys there?
We can go to ads and talk about those there.
Who you got?
Who do I have? All right, let's see what we got. All right, so Eric Fetty, I added him and dropped Elvis Andrews. Eric Fetty in the last 10 games or last 5 games has been absolutely incredible. Like, I dove into his profile and I was like, oh my God, this is wonderful. Like, he's doing everything that you would want to see. And he's definitely a guy that I am going to have a considerable amount of on teams next year. So he pitched fantastically well today, 3 hits, 5 innings, 8 Ks. But heading into today, in his last 5 games, if I get this up here really quickly, in his last 5 games, extend the vowel just so that we can do this. Okay, so in his last 5 games, it's beautiful. His in-zone contact rate is at 83.9%, so better than league average, which is saying something for him because his three-year average is right around 90%. So he's doing something different and effective. His O swing is at 36%. So well above league average, really, really good for the walk rate. And not surprisingly, the walk rate is at 5.1%. Now his K rate is all the way up at 24.6%. So better than league average for Eric Fetty, who we never consider, to be a guy that, that strikes guys out. And then he's got an 11% swinging strike rate. And then when you look at the reason why, it's very clear on a number of different reasons. His, why are you not showing here fastball velocity? Anyways, his fastball velocity is up. It's been up over the last little bit. I'm trying to get it to show up here, but it's not showing up on the thing here. Okay, here we go. So his fastball velocity towards the second half of the season has been up. It's been at 9. He's averaged 94.2 on his sinker in his last 5 games, which is a career high. He did have it 94.5 the 5 games before that, but his velocity is elevated, which you'd love to see because that's one of the reasons why he can get better. In addition to that, the percentage of pitches that he's throwing that are sinkers has gone way down. It's down at 36%. In the middle of August, it was at 50%. So he's cut 15% of his sinker, which is clearly probably going to be his worst pitch. He's increased his slider usage dramatically to 32.9%. He has started throwing, I think it's a cutter. Yeah, his cutter, he started throwing more as well at 24.2%. And I think the last pitch is a changeup. Changeup is right around how it usually is, but he's doing everything you want to see. The fastball velocity is increasing. The slider usage, which is his best pitch by swinging strike at 14.6% and at O swing at 30%, are the best things. And I imagine those pitches are playing up with the increase in velocity. So Fetty was my number 1 targeted pitcher, for places where I needed starting pitcher, even above Hill, and another guy that I'll talk about in a second, in Dylan Peters. So again, like, these are all the things that we want to see. You got increase in velocity, you got decrease in your usage of your worst pitch, an increase in usage of your best pitch. And
it's
that's
crazy
what
with Fetty. It's crazy with Fetty. His 2 worst starts are both against the Mets over the last 5. If you take he got shelled by the Mets of all teams. You take those 2 starts out, he looks even better. Which I know you can't because they are starts, but you see Bloomfield and those guys put out those tweets about 2 worst starts removed. Fetty's been very, very good, very good.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is I think why skills is so important is oftentimes you can find guys who have had those 1 or 2 bad outings, which are just pure variance, right? BABIP or home run per fly ball or whatever it is. And if you see the skills are there, if they've already had those bad performances, it's I don't know if it's less likely that they're going to happen, but it feels less likely at least. I mean, they're more likely going to pitch to their skill level, but when the skills are improving, they're more likely to do that. The next guy that I targeted or that I had was Dylan Peters. Added Dylan Peters and dropped Harold Ramirez. Dylan Peters, I had him equal with Heel because he pitched super well today. He had Cincinnati, who struggled against lefties, and Peters is a lefty. And then he's got at Miami at the end of this week. So he's got the 2 starts. He's been looking really good. He's another guy who, if you look under the hood on him, he is throwing I want to say he's either throwing his sinker less or has just totally dropped its usage. But he has definitely been improving as well. I'm just bringing up my rolling average graph here. So in his last 3 games, just because he doesn't have a huge sample, the Z contact is at 82.1%. So it's below league average, which is really nice. His O swing is at 36%. So he's getting chases on pitches outside the zone. His K percentage, and he's traditionally a super low K guy because he's a sinker guy, is at 20.3%. So not great, but his walk rate is at 6.8%. So you're talking about a guy who's about 14% around league average for K minus walk. And then his swinging strike rate is at 12.1%, which is really good. And the reason that is happening is that his sinker usage, his sinker usage is going up. So what is it? His changeup, is that his best pitch? The changeup usage has gone up recently. And then the slider he's using less. That's what it is. The slider he's actually eliminated from his profile. And it's the curveball, maybe. Curveball has an uptick in usage as well. And so when we look at his pitching repertoire, which will probably tell us why he's doing that. So the changeup usage, the increase in the changeup usage is important. 22.5% swinging strike rate on his changeup. 39.6% O swing on his changeup. I mean, his in-zone contact on the changeup is 65%. This is a elite with a capital E changeup, and he is throwing it as his pitch that he's throwing most often. And so that, for me, is really big, and I think a reason why you see him standing out. So he's been good so far. He pitched well today. It's his best outing of the season so far, and I'm excited about it. After that, added Sean Nolan. Sean Nolan's skills are decent. I got him for next week. You mentioned kind of trying to set your teams up for a week ahead of time. That's what I'm really trying to do right now. So next week, I should already have my 2 start pitchers just because it's going to be so competitive. And then this upcoming FAAB period, I'll target for the last week of the season, the 2 start pitchers. And you'll want to kind of think about who's most likely to keep those 2 starts because they're in the playoff hunt or totally out of the playoff hunt, but need innings. So Nolan, he's pitching at Miami and then at Cincinnati. He's a lefty next week. So he's got a 2-step against 2 favorable teams. So I like that. And Fetty was a really nice pickup too, because he pitches this week, pitched well. And next week, he's also got at Miami and then at Cincinnati for a 2-step. So setting it up nicely there. And then I added Nick Gordon. I don't have him in my lineup, unfortunately. He had a stolen base and had a really nice day today. But he's been playing against righties every single day for Minnesota. He steals bases, not a ton of power, but he's getting on base, decent batting average. So I added him there. Next league, added Yonny Hernandez, dropped Ramon Urias just because he had the injury. And I don't think he's going to play every day moving forward. He's been battling with a leg issue for a long time. Although with Mateo getting injured for the season, which we found out today, maybe he does play more. I don't know. Yoshi Tsutsugo, for some reason, was available in like every single one of my main events. It was really weird. I don't know why. It was just one of these things where a guy is maybe like 60% owned, and yet from the luck of the draw, he's available in a lot of my leagues. So I added Tsutsugo, dropped Edward Olivares for the 50th time. Added Andrew Chafin, dropped Marco Gonzalez. That was a tough decision, but this is a league where I really don't need volume. I need ratios and saves. And so I moved on from him. He faces Boston this week, so I wasn't going to use him. And then next week, I don't know. Next week he's got a good two-step, but it's both on the road at Oakland and then at LA Angels. It's not a bad two-step. It's a good two-step, but just when I don't need volume and he's not going to give me Ks, really, I just wanted to steer clear of him in this particular league. Chafin, Gonzalez. In my other main event, I added Joe Barlow, dropped Darren Ruff, just because the Giants the next 2 weeks play a ton of righties. I added Tsutsugo, dropped Lewis Brinson, added Andrew Chafin, dropped Hunter Dozier, although he's starting to hit a little bit, hit another home run today. Added Tommy La Stella, who I love this week. They play 6 out of 7 righties this week, including the first 4 games. And La Stella is hitting at the top of that lineup. Already has a home run, 2 for 3 today. Dropped Bobby Bradley. This was a little bit of a tough one because they have 9 games next week. But I got to play it week to week, and I really loved La Stella heading into this week. So that FAAB bid was just La Stella for Bradley. That was the only one that I wanted to replace him with, because I think the Giants also have 5 out of 6 games next week that are righties as well. Yep. Sorry, I'm going a little too in detail probably here on this, but added Garrett Whitlock, dropped Brandon Marsh. I think Whitlock's the closer in Boston. I think he's the guy that they trust the most, even though he's had a little bit of a shaky couple of outings in 2 of his last 3. He has been so good for so long, and everybody else in that bullpen has not been that great, that I think he's going to get saves. We may find out tonight whether that happens, although I think they might be down 2-1. And then Tsutsugo dropped Michael A. Taylor. He's on bereavement list. I don't know when he's going to come back. Again, playing it week to week. Added Yonny Hernandez, dropped Miles Mikolas. Added Taylor Walls, dropped Jack Mayfield. Added Nick Gordon, dropped Anthony Alford. Mikolas hasn't pitched that well. He's got some decent matchups down the stretch, but in this one, I'm really playing it week to week, and I have a decent number of starters, I think. So I'm really going for plate appearances this week. And then Walls should play every day with Franco out. He's just incredible defensively, and that's going to get him in the lineup, I think, every day. Added Yoshi Tsutsugo again, added Eric Fetty, dropped Harold Castro, dropped Bailey Ober just because they're piggybacking Ober with Pineda, so he's not going to get wins, and his next 2 outings are against the Blue Jays. I added Andrew Chafin, dropped Darren Ruff. In TGFBI, added Tsutsugo, dropped Sam Hilliard, added Drew Steckenrider, dropped Tyler Clippard, added Yadiel Hernandez, dropped Jesus Aguilar. I'm not going to win my TGFBI league. Jordan Rosenblum has been dominating. He's top 10. He's had a fantastic season. Shout out to him. Great analyst as well. But I'm making a run. I've been stuck at 100 for about 3 months, and I'm now, I think, like 51st overall or something like that. So feeling good about being competitive in that spot. And then in my 12-teamers, added Paulo Espino, dropped Bailey Ober, added Eric Fetty, dropped Tyler Clippard, added Yoshi Tsutsugo, dropped Ian Kennedy, who is awful. He was awful beforehand, but for some reason the Phillies thought that would help them. Added Garrett Whitlock, dropped Tyler Clippard, added Andrew Chafin, dropped Bailey Ober, added Joe Barlow, dropped John Means, added Bobby Dahlbeck, dropped Tyler Naquin, added Yoshi Tsutsugo, dropped Shane McClanahan, added Drew Steckenrider, dropped Adam Ottavino. This is a league where the only way I can increase is with saves, and I'm not in too much volume trouble, so I kind of moved with a very heavy approach. I think I have 7 closers going in that league, something like that. And then my last one, sorry guys, I have so many damn leagues. Andrew Chafin, dropped Tyler Clippard, added Rowan Wick, got to save today, dropped Adam Ottavino, added Carlos Estevez, got to save today, dropped John Means, added Paulo Espino, dropped Nestor Cortez, and then added Nick Solak, dropped Bailey Ober. That's it for me. Woo!
That Nestor Cortez one's an interesting one. Interesting.
I dropped him because he's at Baltimore this week. And then next week he is. Oh, he's got the 2-step next week. He does.
That's why I was surprised. I was looking at that going,
I think that's a saves league.
Yeah,
and
Texas
I think I was
Boston.
I was probably like, I can probably pick him up next week.
Yeah,
as well.
That's fine. Fair enough. The Bailey Ober thing, we talked about that last week because I remember I grabbed him and then didn't get the news in time because I was doing other stuff. But he still got you 8 1/3, 5 earned, 10 Ks. I'll take it. I'll take the 10 strikeouts. So it wasn't the end of the world. But I don't know why they're piggybacking him. Maybe it'll change with Joe Ryan going down. We'll see. That could get Ober back to being a regular pitcher again. So we'll see. All right, I only got a couple leagues to go through here. TGFBI, added Harold Castro just because I need multi-position guys. I'm dying to fill a roster right now. Dropped Willie Adames, who I don't see doing too much the rest of the way, which unfortunately stinks. I grabbed Merrill Kelly for his 2-step next week. Not the most friendly 2-step, but again, if I'm looking for wins and strikeouts, it's versus Atlanta, versus the Dodgers. Not ideal, but he's been pitching better than people give him credit for, so I'm grasping for straws here. I got him for $1, so I'm not too crazy about it. Then I grabbed Jackson Coar, dropped Edward Cabrera because he doesn't strike anybody out. I did not use Jackson Coar next week. I grabbed him because originally he was set up to do a 2-step next week. Doesn't look like that's happening, but his last 3 starts are Cleveland, Minnesota. So that was what I was looking at, is the schedule coming up, which I'd much rather see because he threw 6 strong against Cleveland. And since he's come back up from the minors, he's looked like a different pitcher outside of getting destroyed by Oakland. But Oakland's been doing that to people lately. So I'm going to kind of let that one slide and see how he goes forward. But most of these picks were looking ahead to next week. It's kind of what I was going with the budget I had. In my OC qualifier now, I added Brandon Belt for $1 and dropped Jake Cronenworth because they say he's day-to-day, but he's got a fractured finger. Like, he's not going to – maybe he shocks the world, but a fractured finger trying to hit, how productive is he really going to be? Prove me wrong. I hope he does, but I couldn't wait. He hasn't played yet this week, so I don't know what he's doing. And then I grabbed Aaron Savale, dropped Edward Cabrera for $1. So I'll take that and see where Savale goes in that direction. In one of my satellites, I added Seth Beer, dropped Jake Cronenworth. That one stings. Added Jackson Coar, dropped Edward Cabrera. Added Longo, dropped Gleyber Torres, because even with the righties, Longo's playing every day again, which I'm very happy to see.
Longo Dongo.
Yep, he's been very productive this week, so I've been very happy with that. Grab Lane Thomas. This one was tough. I dropped Rafael Ortega, who I've been liking. Really, if you take a deeper dive, has not been that productive the last few weeks, especially in the power department, which is no shocker. He wasn't going to hit all those home runs. Lane Thomas has been – I'm going to ride that hot bat for the last few weeks over Ortega. We'll see how that pans out. And then I added Kevin Pillar and dropped Adolis Garcia for $1 because Pillar is playing every day, and the Mets offense is starting to click and got some nice matchups the next few weeks. So, again, just trying for anything to keep pushing in those leagues. And then my last satellite league, added Seth Beer, dropped Andrew Vaughn, who got put on the IL. So that one at least stings, but not as bad. Grabbed Aaron Savale, dropped Bailey Ober for $2. Grabbed Steven Matz, dropped Tariq Skubal, who they're doing the babying of innings thing with now. So that's why I got rid of Skubal, as they're going to, I think, really put the screws down on him going forward. And Matz, I talked about this on my last episode with Mike Mayer. He's pitching great, but he's got at Minnesota this next week, which is very intriguing. But if all pans out properly, he does get the Yankees, but it's at home, and he could potentially, if things change, he could potentially get Baltimore. It depends on how they go about doing it. So Matz has been very good. Look under the hood on what he's been doing lately. It's been sneaky good what he's been doing. I've been shocked. I wonder if he's been drinking the water Robbie Ray's drinking. I don't know. But it's trust me, I'm not the biggest Steven Matz fan. But looking at what his upcoming matchups and what he's been doing, if anything gets that Minnesota start alone next week, gets me very excited for the upside he brings to the table. And we can move on from there. But that's it. Nothing crazy in my world. Lots of $1 and $2 adds and drops, and just cross. I dropped Edward Cabrera everywhere. That hurt. Didn't have a great start this last game. Got hit by a ground ball or something. He just doesn't have the strikeouts. Mind-boggling stuff, to say the least. All right. Got a few listener questions, then we'll head on out of here. Oh, I will say I forgot who I dropped them for, and I need to go check and see who dropped them. But I was doing my Tout Wars ad drops. I usually don't go over these ones. One of the ad drops I made this past week, somehow Rafael Devers was dropped.
Oh, wow.
So I got him for $5.
Jeez.
Actually, I'm not. This won't tell me who did it, but I need to pull up the log of additions here and tell you who went ahead of Rafael Devers. I literally, when I saw I won him for $5, I searched every news source on Twitter. Like, did I miss something? Did he go out for the season? And I'm like, no, he went 2 for 3 or whatever with the walk. And like, he's playing. And I looked at his game logs and like, he's still doing fine. What am I missing here? So as this decides to load at a snail's pace, okay, here we go. So in this league, the Tout Wars had their 12 team saves and holds innings pitched leagues. Buxton went for $18, and then I got Devers for $5, and then some batters went cheaper than that. So I don't know what happened there. I'm very curious, but when in Rome, I guess is what they say. So I'm just going to let that one go. Not sure how that went, but listener questions on this wonderful day. We start out with Billy from Canada. Bill Bradley 44 asks, where is Vlady going to be drafted next year, and where would you take him? I say he's probably going to go 4th or 5th, I would say, kind of in that after the Acuna, Tatis, like big pitcher area for me. He's probably middle first round. I will not have him.
Yeah, I agree. He's probably going to be middle, upper first round. I mean, you got to think about so there's Tatis Jr., although he also comes with the injury concerns. So you got to take that into consideration. You got Trey Turner. Trey Turner is going to be unbelievable. He's also going to be on the Dodgers, hitting leadoff on the Dodgers. I mean, 130, 140 run potential there. You are going to have Acuna coming back and fully healthy, ideally. Although with an ACL, you got to worry about the running. And then I think at that point, you're probably looking at Vlad. I think Vlad is probably going to overtake Soto just because I think people think that Soto hasn't been very good. And he's probably been disappointing. I don't know. I haven't checked on his stats recently, but, expectations were really high because of where he was going. So I'd say he's probably in that area. For me, where I would take him, I think he's, for me, I mean, it's so hard because, I'm not committed to drafting pitchers or doing the pocket aces thing. I know I kind of started some of that saying, or I don't know if I started it, but it kind of stuck with me. I only did that in 2 of 6 leagues of my big leagues last year. So it's not something that I'm going to use every single time. But if I'm grabbing an offensive player, then I'm probably going with speed, and I think there's going to be a number of guys who provide speed at that same area of the draft. And so for me, I mean, I think Vlad is kind of falls in that second round, early second round to me. You think about Freddie Freeman, right? In a lot of ways, Vlad and Freddie Freeman are pretty similar players. Freeman maybe steals a little bit more bases wise. I think Vlad and Freeman are pretty similar batting average wise. And then the counting stats are, pretty similar as well as are the power metrics, but I'll have to take a deep dive and see whether I think this is Vlad's true power potential, which it probably is, or not. So I'd say probably around Freddie Freeman, and I think that's a good kind of comp to think about. I don't know. I think that's a good comp.
Yeah. I think it's a good comp. I'd take Vlad over Freddie, but it's a very good comp. I don't blame neither one of them are stealing. They both hit for average, both hit for power. Pretty much fill your other 4 categories up. Vlad's probably not going to be this good next year. Let me clarify that before the trolls timestamp that one. But I think he's going to be very, very good for a long, long time, kind of like Freddie Freeman. So I think that's a great comp. I think so. That's back first round. I think someone's going to want him more than that, though. So that's why I won't have him. And I'm with you 100% that if I'm looking to fill out my early picks, like we talked about time and time again, I want speed. I'm not taking I'm doing everything in my power not to take a dead spot. It's if I want to take a dead spot, I can take Harper at the end of round 2, or I can do stuff along those lines and still get steals early or get an ace pitcher or something like that. So not saying you can't do it. Go get Whit Merrifield in round 2 or round 3 or something. You'll be fine. I can't stomach it. Maybe things will change. Maybe he drops into the second round next year, but I think he should be back in first, like you said, around Freddie Freeman. He'll go mid first. Someone will go get him. There's no doubt about that to me.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next question on the docket for us. It's a fun one here. We have where'd it go? Ben Ted, our buddy, at breaking Ben _T. who do you have in your first round for next year? You can include on the bubble guys if you can't decide on exactly 15. So let's just have fun with this. Who do you have as your top 3?
All right, so not
Subject
the guys
to change, of course.
The guys that I would draft, or
yes. Let's just say who do we think goes in the top 15?
I would say Garrett Cole.
Okay,
would be my 1-1. But then I think after that, I mean, I don't know if this is the order that I would draft them in, probably, but I think you're looking at Trey Turner, Fernando Tatis Jr., Ronald Acuna. I think you're looking at, I wouldn't draft Vlad there, but you're probably looking at Juan Soto and Vlad. And then you're looking at, DeGrom. And then you're looking at Burns, Bichette, Scherzer. And again, I don't know if he goes there because he's older.
Bueller.
But Bueller. Shohei.
Yeah, Shohei. How do we forget that one? That's a big
one. Well, I mean, the one thing about Shohei is the batting average is the one thing that makes me nervous. But God, that power.
I wouldn't worry about that because the power and speed he brings, I'll sacrifice. I can get. That's one thing I'll sacrifice if I have to for what he brings. I think that's legit is all legit. So
for sure. So Corbin Burns. I mean, Woodruff. Bryce Harper has had an excellent season as well.
We haven't even mentioned Mike Trout yet.
We haven't mentioned Starling Marte.
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing is I think there's a lot of really good hitters. It's going to be really interesting, because it's going to be really interesting. Drafts are going to be really interesting. They always are. I mean, there's always these narratives and stuff like that, but it's going to be fascinating to see what happens because there's a lot of hitting talent with speed, guys like Cedric Mullins, guys like Teoscar, who are now, Cedric's only done it for one season, but, I haven't done a deep dive. I'm sure he's playing a little bit over his head, but, 25 guy or whatever he is. And then you got Teoscar, who now for 2 consecutive seasons has been absolutely phenomenal.
Ozzy Albies is still very, very good. Rafael Devers is still really very good.
Yeah, I mean, Albies is at a fantastic.
Jose Ramirez, did we even mention him?
Devers, I don't know if we mentioned Jose Ramirez. I mean, there's so many good hitters at the top, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be super, super interesting.
Okay, but I'll try to do
Cole's my 1-1.
I'll try to do a top 15. So I think we'll still, barring everyone being healthy, you'll still get Acuna, Tatis 1-2, one way or another. You'll get those 2. Then I go Cole 3. 4, I will say Trey Turner. 5, I go to DeGrom, assuming he's healthy. That's a major assumption right now. Major assumption, but assuming he's healthy. 6th, I'm going to go, this is where people won't go, but I put J-Ram at 6 just for what he does. Like, he covers all 5 categories. Like, it's too good to me. And then, 7, you'll have Soto. 8, you'll have Vlad. And then you could let's throw Burns at 9, Bueller at 10. Man, you're just loading stuff up here. So there's top 10 for you. And then this is pure speculation. But who else am I missing in this whole group? Bichette.
Those people were missing.
Go Shohei at 11. Bichette at 12. Throw Scherzer in there at 13. Yeah, it's loaded. You could keep going if you want, but it's going to be fun. Like, you could literally, just in the first 2 rounds alone, you could have probably 10 pitchers and 20 bats easily, if not more. So it could be a fun way to go about it. Kind of how this last year, where you could almost get some really high end, just outside ace pitchers in round 3 and 4. So it could make the drafting even more entertaining this year. Like you said, you weren't locked into pocket aces. Like, you kind of, not saying you ever are, but the year before, you're way more focused on pocket aces, it felt like, than this past year. So kind of go with the flow type thing. All right. Last question we have here from Dave Petroziello. Get your notepad out. Maybe it's just me and some of the guys that have disappointed me this year, but I'm going to mark down or at least be very wary of any non-elite lefty hitter that can either have their numbers dragged down by not performing well against lefties and or platooning against lefties. Obviously, that doesn't go for Soto, Freeman, Ohtani, and amazingly Mullins is in this group, but I want to see that for a second year. Other than that, I feel a good amount of lefty bats fall victim to what I brought up. Do you guys see that too? Not to mention teams like the Giants, the Rays are specializing in this and having a lot of success. Success breeds copycats. So is that something you're looking at this year? Are you concerned about more platooning going on around baseball?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to think about it. You definitely have to consider it, in the later rounds.
It's the later rounds for sure.
In the later rounds. I definitely think you have to think about it. I mean, it's been tough. Like, there's a lot of good hitters that are being platooned, and it's really hard to manage that. And it's easy to say, like, oh, well, if they're platooning, then I'm gonna put them in the ideal situations and stuff. But then you'll have 2 weeks where you can't use them because they're facing a bunch of lefties, and or like on a weekend they face one lefty, but then you're just getting 2 out of the 3 games, right? So it really does have an impact. So I definitely think you need to pay attention to it. And Jeff Zimmerman's done a ton of great research on this, just looking at like when are players most at risk for a platoon? What does the OPS look like, versus lefties in general, things like that. So I would definitely check out that research. I think it's in the process that Jeff has done or online at Fangraphs. But definitely think you need to be mindful of it.
It's been huge because the guys like Darren Ruff, like you mentioned the Giants, I see it every day. Ruff's been great, but there's those weeks when they face lefties like him and Wilmer Flores. Wilmer Flores has resorted to a bench role all of a sudden because all these righties, and plus LaStella's back and stuff. So there's guys that are super talented. In theory, it's what we've been doing with the Rockies for so long, because a lot of guys are so much more valuable, obviously, when they're in Coors, but when they're not, we don't want them. But do you drop them because someone else will grab them? And this whole game you play, well, now it goes deeper. It's the ever-changing world. You got closers to worry about. You got platoons to worry about. The one thing you said is it's more the later round guys. If your early round guys are platoon questions, probably not an early round player to begin with. So that's a concern for sure. But it is going to happen more and more, especially as this game continues to develop. And, there's likely, hopefully, going to be a designated hitter in both leagues, which could impact this as well. It may be for the positive, who knows? But it also could, because it could change the bench role, maybe add an extra pitcher, so on and so forth. So we'll have to pay attention to that. I haven't even looked, like maybe there's more platooning in the National League. Well, no, you said the Rays, but it feels like it's more in the National League with pinch hitters and double switches and stuff along those lines. But definitely something to keep in mind. I'm not going to say it's not something to do, but out of all the things that have happened this year, I'm more concerned about my guys getting hurt all the time. So let's worry about that issue for now. Like, I'm just looking for pulses half the time, and if they're going to platoon, hopefully it's the strong side. That's all I can do right now. But it's true. Like you said, Zimmerman, I know you do, but Zimmerman's a natural at it about maximizing at bats. He's figured that out, and it helps him out tremendously. So definitely something to it. All right, Toby, that's going to wrap us up for episode 96, our week 25 FAAB recap. We got 2 more weeks of FAAB to go. It is winding. Like, when I loaded up the RotoWire starting grid to talk about some pitchers here, it's almost done. It literally was not giving me options to go much farther. So we are close to the end. So any final words as we keep grinding on?
No, just keep on keeping on,
Yep.
Grind it out. I think the one thing you mentioned at the beginning is key. Like, think 1 week ahead now. Think 1 week ahead. In this next FAAB run, it's going to be 2-start pitchers are going to be super competitive. Look a week out. Try to maximize those 2-start pitchers if that's the position you're in, or go for guys that have really good schedules, that last week of the season, especially when pitching is going to be all over the place. Really plan that out and think about how your whole remaining roster over these last 2 weeks, where you're going to plug guys in throughout the week. And if you can at all possible, have every player that you're going to use for the remainder of the season this week. And then that way, when things inevitably happen and problems arise, then you're able to adapt, but just with little things instead of being like, I need to be all in on these 2-start pitchers this last week of the season going into that. And it's just tough because you probably won't have the FAAB to outbid everybody in your league. Sometimes random people will start paying attention again that last week just so they feel better or something about
I got all this money to spend.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously. And spend all your FAAB. There's no reason to leave the season with anything left.
Yeah, I took that metaphor or idea to the golf course this past weekend in a scramble where we have mulligans. This other team wasn't using them. I said, you guys can't take them when you're gone. Same with FAAB. Like, you got to use it all. I did check. Bassett is scheduled to start next week. Just keep that in mind. If he's available, at least RotoWire's got him. I know I heard rumblings about it. That's why he was traveling. He's going to throw a bullpen in Kansas City. They have him scheduled to pitch twice next week. We'll see. Also, if you're looking ahead, just doing a quick scan, everybody except the Marlins and Mets play 6 games the final week of the season. They all have at least one day off. Marlins and Mets have a doubleheader against each other, so it's 2 7-inning games, so like 6.5 games, kind of. So keep that in mind if you're looking to maximize at bats or whatnot, or you might get some rando pitchers coming out in those messes, or the Mets face the Marlins for like 4 games. So there's probably a pitcher you could stream in that scenario. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll be back to you guys next week to keep breaking things down and get you ready. And before you know it, I saved those questions about some other 2022 draft stuff that are a lot longer than our top 15. We'll dive into those in about 2 more weeks. Give us 3 more weeks. Give us 3 more weeks. And then we'll get going hard into your 2022. Well, let's wrap up this season and finish strong. Check out Toby on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. I'm at BD Intric. Another episode of Bubba and the Bat Flip in the books. Catch you guys later.